Welcome to Breaking the Couch, a weekly conversation demystifying what happens in and behind the therapy scene to support your healing journey. We're your hosts.
I'm Dr. Dowdson, a licensed clinical professional counselor, a certified school psychologist, and a trauma specialist with Playfully Psyched.
And I'm Dr. Joe Harchi with Soft Art Psychology, a licensed clinical psychologist.
We're here aiming to provide you with mental health tools to address the cycle of generational trauma across the age span, from infancy and childhood to adulthood.
For more information, visit our Instagram page at Breaking the Couch or our website, breakingthecouch.com. While we hope you love listening to and learning from our podcast, it's not a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
Okay, and so we're back as usual, and we are in this holiday season in the United States for mostly people who identify as Christian or celebrate some of the holidays that come up in the months of November and December. We already did one kind of holiday-ish episode in preparation for one of the November holidays, and I thought it would be good for us to talk about preparation for the major December holidays for people who go travel and see family. So what brought this on is kind of thinking about this from a parenting and family perspective. And so we talk a lot in this podcast about, trauma, generational trauma, the supports around that, how to help yourself, how to help your little ones, and every size in between. And something that comes up often is when you're kind of thinking about breaking generational curses or healing generational wounds, and you have children in your life, you may adopt a practice that is different than the way that you were parented or the way that previous generations in your family parented or reared children. And you may be very thoughtful and intentional about that. And therefore, other generations might kind of see it as offensive or like, this was good enough for you. This was good enough for me. Why are you changing things? You can make some really hurtful comments or aggressive comments, right?
Some righteousness, right? Like, this was the way, it worked out. Why do you want to do it some other kind of way? It was, yeah.
Yeah, why it ain't broke, why fix it, right? And then I think that with that piece, there comes up where you're feeling dismissed too, because obviously if you're changing the way that you're changing the way that your family parents or the way that you approach children, there's probably something to your own experiences or feelings about, hey, I wish that someone had parented me differently or had thought about this differently in some aspects. As we're not saying that people throw away all parts of how they were parented always, sometimes they might, but just kind of exploring, well, what happens when great grand whomever throws a little mini verbal tantrum or cuts you the side eye because you actually tried to respect what your child said when they said, hey, I don't want to hug them. They shied away and they didn't want to hug. And they're like, why won't you hug me? Come give me a hug. I haven't seen you in forever. Right. And some of those
So
things.
then you get the heat for, respecting what your child said. And we know how Dr. Doughton feels about forcing children to, right, like to hug or to greet someone in a certain kind of way that they're like, I don't want to, for whatever reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Right.
this person, or I'm scared, or yeah.
Exactly, right? Because we want to teach about body autonomy, right? And bodily consent from as early as possible. And I don't believe that there's too young, right? If a 6-month-old, if I reach out and like, oh, can I hold your baby? And the 6-month-old is like, I'm not going to be like, give me the baby, right? I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, maybe some other time, right? Like it looks like they don't want me to hold them, and that's okay. I can wave it from afar, or I'll just be over here, let them warm up. And so we want children to know that adults aren't forced upon them.
Yeah, I was actually, can I tell this story of when we were going to get Chinese food in Pittsburgh?
Absolutely. Let's see what this comes up.
Years ago, I don't know how many years ago, Dr. Doughton and I were walking and we were grabbing some Chinese food, and there was what seemed to be a parent and his baby, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And Dr. Doughton and I were like, "Oh my gosh, how cute." And we were saying hi to baby, and baby seemed to kind of do this body language where the baby kind of backed away and had like a maybe overwhelmed expression. And
mhm,
that is where you shared with me about, kind of the baby deregulating themselves and dad not having to do what dad was doing because dad was like, "Oh, let me show you my baby more," and you were like, "Oh, she's trying to kind of soothe herself," like, and
mhm.
you and I walked away. This is what happens when two therapists see a baby on the
2
sidewalk.
psychologists, like, we're
Right,
walking down the
right.
street, like
We're 2 psychologists trying to just say hi to this baby, but here we go, like, talking about it at dinner afterward, because, yeah, baby was overwhelmed, and that was okay. We want people to be able to, starting, like you said, as early as possible, check in with themselves and realize, like, "Oh, that's too much." Okay,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm. Yeah, I love that you shared that one, and this is, like, we're getting off topic, but I love that you shared that because
Right.
because one, it just reminds me of sometimes the impact that I have on the world, right? Like, on you, but
Absolutely.
then that you
Mhm,
remembered that, and I think we
mhm,
all forget sometimes that we something that we say in passing can be impactful, good or not so good, right? But it can be impactful to others, and I think I'm just honored that you remembered that. When you started talking, I took me right back there, right? I was like, "Oh, yes, I did,"
mhm,
but, like, it's not something that would have come to my forefront of my mind otherwise. Okay. So when great grand whomever says something negative, one of the options people can do is choose not to really acknowledge it, right? We talked a little bit about this before, kind of doing a little bit of a pivot, right? And just, kind of going on with whatever you were doing, right? Making a little note to yourself that, hey, I'm doing the best that I know to do for my child. I think this is the right, and then keep going, right? Your child or the children in your life are relying on the more knowledgeable, seasoned adults to be their advocates in these situations.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and so not I don't wanna undermine that it can be really challenging when you go back into family situations because even though you may be a fully grown adult, you may revert back to feeling like a child,
mhm,
um, and so it's can be hard to, like, stand up or say those things, and so that's why sometimes the first thing I would just say is, "Don't say anything," right?
mhm.
And just continue to reinforce what you were doing with your child. Um, that's one. Do you have one?
Yeah, I have another one. I love that. The pivot is, Dr. Doughton's pivot is just really, really, really helpful for these family situations during the holiday seasons. I'm
Mhm.
definitely sharing that with folks. I think another one would be to, what's the saying, Dr. Doughton? Like, choose your battles, pick your
Pick
battles,
and choose
whatever
your
it is.
battle. Yeah,
Yeah,
mhm,
that whole thing. So basically, like, if we're imagining a family situation that isn't toxic or abusive, right? Like if it is,
mhm.
talk to your therapist about like figuring out what you need to do around that. But
Fair.
if it's like fairly functional and safe,
Mhm,
and there still are these like slights or uh, righteous comments about parenting,
mhm,
I suggest picking your battles because if you are gonna be like, kind of pivoting, and then there's like something that doesn't sit well,
mhm,
it's, I think, okay, not to like hash out the criticism in front of your child, but like figure out a way that you could skillfully kind of explain, I'm gonna be doing this with my baby and just like you said, kind of keep moving after that.
yeah, I love that. So, I'm always trying to like frame and give people language. And again, anything I always say, just like I would say to a patient, take it and use it as your own, rephrase it, ignore it completely. Do whatever you feel like you want to do with this, right? This is just coming from my brain. But I love that because if you're going to address it, I would say, and you're still trying to keep the interaction healthy and moving forward, sometimes you might want to, identify or validate where that may be coming
Mm,
from with the other person, right?
mhm. I like
Um,
that.
so like it might be something like, "Oh, I know you really care about my child, right? I appreciate you for, giving me your input." And then so you say that with the warm and care, like, "Oh, I know how much you care about such and such," right? And then you just state what you've decided already, right?
I love
Um,
that.
I've
Mhm,
decided to try this technique with my child, or to try this approach for for their well-being, or I really want to see them be able to stand up to bullies in the playground, and I found,
mhm,
whatever. But like, go ahead and lead with some type of compassion and validation of the other person, trying to see it from that what's their underlying meaning, because every time we throw up a defense, right? Um, we are protecting ourselves, or we're trying to like figure something out. So it's usually coming from a place of hurt or sadness. And so other generations often will feel like uh their way wasn't good enough, right? Like their wisdom is being thrown away,
mhm,
right? They raised
mhm,
X amount of children, or helped, so many generations come to be, and we may seem ungrateful, and just kind of disposing of them, right? And so I could see how that would be hurtful. I could see how someone saying, like, if someone came to me and said, "Nothing you've ever done or said to me has been helpful ever." Oh my, that would be really hurtful, right?
ouch. Yeah, yeah.
And so that's not what we're saying when we're trying to, you know, and approach different generations differently. Usually we're just saying this one thing we don't want to
Mhm,
do, right? Like, and they have
mhm.
like extrapolated that to like they're horrible. They were horrible at their job. And so I just like to lead with that compassion piece, that empathetic piece, right? Of I can see how doing it differently might be hurtful, right? This is what I'd be thinking about. Okay, so they're coming from even if they said it in a snarky way,
Mhm.
even if it was passive aggressive, and I'm like, they are still I can try to find, maybe they're just trying to say what they think is best,
Mhm,
right? They're
mhm.
allowed to say what they think is best. I don't have to take that advice.
That's right.
That's how I look at it. Um, and then I think depending on the age of the child, right? Equipping them with some words, right, in
Oh,
certain
I like that.
situations,
Mhm,
right? And so
mhm,
doing some practice, and obviously there's just a few days before this holiday, but just doing some practice if you can. Of We used an example about like physical touch, right? Often, um, or sometimes children who haven't seen family members in a long time don't want to just run up and give them a hug. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. And so if you can come up with some scenarios of like, such and such is probably really going to want to hug you, and it's okay if you don't. Are there other things you might wanna do? Like, maybe we could ask them for a fist bump, or maybe we could
mhm.
blow a kiss, or maybe we could do a high five, or thumbs up if we want no touch at all, right? But we can kind of come up with 2 or 3 things that, given the opportunity when whomever reaches out for the hug, all without even asking, you know, you as the parent or the guardian can kinda say, "Oh, you know, look at your child's cues," and they're like, I don't think I wanna do
Mhm.
that. They're, like, looking all bashful and shy. Then you would intervene at that point and, say, "Oh, it looks like that they're not wanting a hug, but," and then you look at your child, remember the list, and you can, like, help them come up with those 2 or 3 things, and then they can decide that with the adult, right? And so you're being there as supportive. Most adults can pick up on that cue and be like, "Oh, yeah, let's do a fist bump," or like, "Let's do whatever," right? But that could actually really help children to, again, get their voice, and help you not seem like you're raising a disrespectful child or something, right? There's still some acknowledgement of the social aspect of being in that environment.
Yeah, I love that suggestion too because, your child can hopefully take that into other settings too, you know? I could see that being really helpful in the world.
Mhm.
And then my last, suggestion might be to check in with yourself after about what came up for you. So, however you decide to handle it, just letting those parts of you that might have felt hurt judged, criticized, have some airtime within. So whether that be just like checking in with yourself and saying, what was coming up for me without attaching too much story to it, but just noticing the feelings,
Mhm.
or whether that be through writing, like journaling
Mhm.
or talking it out with a friend, just taking a moment to let those parts have some airtime within might be
Mhm.
helpful. Mhm.
Absolutely. And remembering that you can always or almost always like create those moments if you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling like, okay, in this moment I don't know what to say. I can come back to this later. I the bathroom is always like my
Mhm.
go-to, right? You can have an overactive bladder this during this holiday season, right?
That's right.
Right? In the
Right.
bathroom every 10 minutes if you need to. But usually it's a place where people will
Mhm.
actually give you a little bit of privacy, right? A little bit sometimes. So it's okay to step off and
Mhm.
give yourself a few minutes to ground, to scroll through social media, to make a quick call, to send a text, to hang out with your kiddo, right?
Mhm.
Most children will a lot of children will enjoy washing their hands an extra time, right? Because they get to
Mhm.
play in the water. So it's like young children. Yeah, let's go wash our hands in the bathroom together.
Mhm.
Right? And turning like,
We
is
both
mommy
need a
up?
break. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do. So that could be super
Mhm.
helpful too.
That
I
was
really
really good.
Thank
Mhm.
you. I really hope that some of these tips would be helpful for those listening. And if it's not helpful for you, please, please, please feel free to share it with others that might find it helpful. We're wishing you the best in this season, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate, whatever's going on for you in your life. And remember, you can tag us on Instagram, tag us in your stories, reply to our comments. I have finally started posting on Instagram at Breaking the Couch again. So you'll be seeing some of those posts and what we have coming up for each week. And you can visit our website if you want to tell us, like, hey, I want to talk about this or this episode, or ask questions. You can fill out the little survey on our website, breakingthecouch.com. You can leave us a message if you like voicemails, which I don't know who does that anymore, but you can leave us a voicemail on Anchor. And again, anytime that we discuss books, we always put that in our show notes and a link to our bookshop that helps give back to local bookstores, which is especially important during this time, right? Because a lot of people will
Mhm.
flock to the big name, big box online distributors. And so sometimes the little bookstores suffer. So you can make purchases from the little bookstore to give back and keep those local bookstores open. Until next time.
If you are looking for a therapist for yourself or your child, you can visit our websites, playfullypsych.com or softheartpsychology.com.
We appreciate you joining us this week and can't wait till there's another opportunity to jump on the couch with you next week.